When you look at me, you're looking at an individual who have divested himself of all religions. I have a free spirituality that's in place at this time, that's connected to my ancestors, my wonderful, beautiful ancestors known in history as the ancient Egyptians. So, no, don't allow anybody to take any credit away from our ancient Egyptian ancestors. And another thing they have done, they have taken Northeast Africa and made it the land of the Bible. See? Northeast Africa consists of Palestine, Lebanon, Jerusalem, Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. All that land area is part of the continent of Africa, called Northeast Africa. In 1859, they created and dug a canal. Took them 10 years, 1859 to 1869, to create what is known as the Suez Canal, trying to divide that land area away from the continent of Africa. Can't do it. So what they did was that they used that section of Africa over there as part of the land of the Bible. Okay? What they wanted to do, Clemson, is to try to get as close to Egypt as possible. Because Egypt, when you realize the two entities, meaning that Egypt and religion, Egypt is the only two that has a true history, a physical history, something that you can go and see and touch, something that you don't have to dig in the ground to try to find out whether the ancient Egyptians existed on planet Earth. It's there. The Great Pyramid is there. The greatest edifice that has ever been built on planet Earth. The Sphinx is there. All your monuments that wasn't stolen out of ancient Egypt by the Europeans are still there. Okay? On the other hand, Egypt versus religion, religion has to have literature to sustain itself. Egypt don't have to have no literature to sustain itself. You can see, feel, and smell the creation of the civilization that was created during the time of antiquity by our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians. Religion, you have to read about it and believe it in written literature. That's what they are doing and have done to us as a people. That's the reason why we are so confused as a people. We're going to have to find our way back to ancient Egypt. We're going to have to divest ourselves in all religions. We're going to have to take the religion of Christianity and this image that we know today as Jesus Christ and throw it in the nearest garbage can that you can find. You're going to have to take Islam alaikum and alaikum salam and the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, all of that garbage, and throw it in the garbage can to clear your mind of all this confusion. You're going to have to take this black Hebrew Israelitism. You're going to have to go somewhere and get yourself a blood transfusion and run all this black Hebrew Israelite, this Hebrew blood out of your system that you think existed during the time of Abraham. Never been an Abraham. So divest yourself of all of that. Okay? Get yourself a spiritual enema. Clean your system out. Get back into your own indwelling spiritual power that your Creator gave you at the time of your birth. It's inside of you. Don't come outside and bring that power, that spiritual power that the Creator gave you that's connected to the whole entire universe by way of your pineal gland. Don't bring that spiritual power and invest it into a dead man-made religion. And you take this God that you have been believing in a God, and this God that has been put upon you. Take this God and throw it in the nearest garbage can that you can find, along with the rest of this religious garbage.
Now, let me ask you, are you saying that there were no people in that area of what they call Sumer or Mesopotamia, because there are monuments that, the zygotes and things like that? Talk to me about that.
Only people living in that area was Africans. That's Northeast Africa. The artifacts that they tell you that they found over there, they created those artifacts. Like I told you before, the European scholar academic community argued against any existence of a Sumerian.
But you're saying they were people.
Africans, yes. That had nothing to do with what they're talking about today in the Bible or in so-called pseudo-history that the Europeans created. Has nothing to do with it.
Then what was the interrelationship of those Africans in that area, Mesopotamia, Persia? Maybe you should talk about Persia. What about the Persians?
Never been a Persian. Persian is strictly biblical literature.
Babylon?
It's all biblical literature.
Then explain that area. Who was there? What was the
Africans.
relationship? What was the relationship with Egypt?
They were all connected by way of them being Africans. Any African throughout the continent of Africa, or any African today, 1999, can claim to be an ancient Egyptian. All you have to do, the qualification for that is to be an African. Okay?
So are you saying there was a sharing of culture and of language and of general information?
No. I'm saying that if you go throughout the continent of Africa, you have, wherever the geographical land area where the Africans live, they have their own culture and civilization and language. Okay? Mm-hmm. The ancient Egyptians had his unique culture, language, and civilization. Mm-hmm. The ancient Egyptians, the people that we know in history of the ancient Egyptians, were the ones that the omnipotent universal creator used as human instruments to bring forth all of civilization. Mm-hmm. Through them. Like each human on earth, their personal creator used their mother and father as human instruments to bring them forth in the world. Mm-hmm. So the creator used the ancient Egyptians as human instruments to bring forth all of civilization. So the Africans living throughout the continent of Africa had their own unique culture and civilization in whatever geographical land area that they lived. And they had a language to go along with that. Okay? Now this had nothing to do with the ancient Egyptians. They had their own unique culture and civilization. I'm not saying that they didn't intermingle with each other. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the distinct culture. And you follow what I'm saying?
I follow you.
Okay.
I'd like for you to just explain then the Book of the Dead. Manetho was supposed to have given a history. And if you go to Abydos, you'll find in Abydos a place where they say is a library, and then you find the listing of all the kings that coincide with Manetho's explanation or history of Egypt. How do you deal with that?
Manetho. Yeah. Supposed to have come about during the time of Ptolemy II Philadelphius. And we're talking about 287, 83, up in that area, BCE. Okay? There never wasn't Manetho or Manetho. Manetho, you have to understand, Clemson, is nothing but a incarnated name again for the Europeans to write through. Okay? Just a European name that the Europeans used to write through, created by the Europeans. They took this name, Manetho, and said that he was an Egyptian priest during the time of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. And Ptolemy II Philadelphus, this is how the story goes. Suppose I have asked Manetho or Manetho to write a history on his ancestors, the ancient Egyptians. And Manetho